All right. Hi, I'm Elise Chaffins, and I'm here today with Odessa Young, star of the new horror film The Damned, coming to theaters on January 3rd. Thank you so much for joining me today, Odessa.
Thank you for joining me. Thanks for having
Absolutely. One of the things that I really appreciated about Eva is that she never felt like she was trying to be someone other than herself. Uh, Even as only just one of two women, she didn't feel like she was trying to fit a particularly like feminine or masculine kind of role as we might see those. Can you talk just about how you saw her as a person and how that kind of played into your performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think that she's a very serious person. She takes her position, her job very seriously. It's not the job she asks for, but it's the job she's gonna do. And I think that she's not bound by the expectations of gender. I think that, there are a couple of moments in our story where these things come up and the decisions that she should be making and shouldn't be making as a woman and the things that she should be doing or shouldn't be doing as a woman in the environment. And she kind of defies these expectations a little bit. She's not bound by these expectations. And um yeah, I found that to be a very kind of welcoming thing about this character because, I read a lot of kind of genre horror films in which the female protagonist is this person that something happens to. And I found what was refreshing about reading Eva is that she is very much the architect of the things that happen in this film. She's
Mhm.
very active in her decision making, and you watch her struggle with that decision making, but she is the the arbiter of that change. Um, and I really just appreciated that take on a kind of, a female character in a period horror film. It's an uncommon take on it.
Yeah, definitely. You kind of touched on this a little bit, and this is like a movie essentially about a, haunting, maddening spirit, but it's also a movie about regret. And so like, how did just the issue of regret inform your preparation for this role?
Um, I think that while the film is about regret, I think that the what Eva has to convince herself throughout the entire film is that she doesn't regret it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's her entire MO, is like anything that she can do to prove to herself time and time again that she made the right decision so that she never has to feel that regret is kind of where that where the troubles start. Um and I don't know, I feel like we we all go through that. We all have moments where, instead of feeling the regret, instead of feeling the guilt, instead of feeling like we probably should have done something different, if we have hurt someone or made someone's life a little harder, we we make a story. We tell ourselves a story to convince ourselves that no, we did make the right decision, and actually it wasn't our fault, and there was no other option but to do what we did and say what we said. And maybe it meant that someone was, less than happy with our actions, but that's not my fault. I think we all
Mhm.
we all know what that feels like. um we all know what it feels like to eschew responsibility. And so yeah, that was kind of my preparation, was just kind of figuring out how to understand uh what someone how someone creates those myths for themselves. And it wasn't very difficult to understand that, so that was a nice way in.
Yeah. Kind of switching gears, I was obsessed with the knitwear that you were wearing in
Yeah,
this
so was
movie.
I.
It's so wonderful, and I'm a knitter and crocheter, so I was like, "Ooh, I wonder if there's a pattern." But anyway, I know that. sometimes the weather that we see on screen, and this is a, cold winter movie, isn't always the same as what filming situations were. Can you talk just about some of like what the conditions were that you were filming under for this?
Yeah, I mean, they were really how they looked. It
Okay.
was very cold and very windy and blizzardy and, dark for most of the day. We were shooting in February, so you don't get much sunlight during the day. Sunrise is at like 10 a.m. and sunsets at like 3 p.m. Like it's very brutal. And the costumes, I found out kind of early on in the first fitting that like Icelandic women didn't wear coats in the 1860s. It's like not a thing for
Mm.
Icelandic women to wear coats because they didn't need to go outside. That was the whole point, is like, well, if it's cold, you just don't go outside because you don't need to, because you don't do anything to warrant going outside. And so that meant that I couldn't wear a coat for the whole time, even though my character goes outside. So that's all like the being swaddled and having these wraps and these scarves and these mittens and these things that are just like constantly binding you, um, is very much in response to not having, not being in the culture that allows for an easier way of dressing. Um, but it also did a great deal for the characterization. I mean, the sense of claustrophobia and of being, weighed down and of not being able to kind of like escape from this woolen straitjacket is like very, very inspiring, um, for what I think we were trying to do with the film. And I think you can sense it in all of the actors just feeling so heavy, like weighed down by their clothes. Um, yeah, it does this very interesting, nice little bonus thing, aside from just kind of keeping us warmer.
Right. Yeah, yeah, kind of going with that. Can you just talk about like the process of preparing to do a period piece, and just how that differs from, other work you've done that's, set in kind of modern times?
Yeah, I mean, the only way it differs, I think, is that, I inherently understand the context of our time because I'm living it. Um, and I might just have to do a bit more work to understand the context of, you know, uh, the 1860s, for example, in this film. But in terms of preparing, it's like, yeah, it's a little more kind of factual research, but at the end of the day, the feelings are the same, and the
Mm.
circumstances are the same. And, you know, once you spend a day without a cell phone, it's really easy to normalize being without a cell phone. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard to stretch your mind, um, to understand the isolation and the implications of that. Um, so I think, yeah, it's just kind of trying to understand actually how not different it is, and
Mm.
how similar all of our contexts are even to this day, just maybe taking different forms.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the last scene is just really wonderful, and your performance there is just really great. Can you just talk a little bit, just as we wrap up here, just about kind of the mindset you had to get in for that moment, that kind of realization?
Yeah, I mean, y- an extreme relief.
Mm.
It's almost joyous, I think by the end of all of this, it becomes, she's managed to convince herself that this is not an argument of humanity. And so the violence, I don't want to, spoil, but like the
Right.
violence that occurs at the end of the film is not an act of human violence to her. And so it's extreme relief, and it's being overjoyed, and she's done it. It's pride. It's like, I did this, I fixed it, I figured it out, I saved everybody's lives. um it's very important that that feeling is, is real. I didn't want her to just perform that feeling. I didn't want to telegraph the doubt. um I think that in my opinion, the end of the film, you don't even you're just seeing her maybe register. She's not even feeling the doubt, but she's just registering maybe she might feel the doubt. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
right before it happens. Um, so yeah, I think it was just putting off, figuring out who she is when she's genuinely overjoyed,
Hmm.
like worry free for a brief second, because she doesn't get to be that for the whole movie. Yeah, that was the finding that moment.
Excellent. Well, thank you again so much for joining me today, and congratulations on the film and best of luck to you going forward. Thank you.
Appreciate it.